The moment I stepped through that polished oak door, my heart pounded so loud I swore everyone in the room could hear it. I was just supposed to pretend, just play along for one dinner, and then walk away. But the second her mother's eyes met mine, the world froze. Her hands trembled as she reached out to me, her lips quivering like she had seen a ghost. "David," she whispered, tears already pooling in her eyes. I stood there, frozen. "My name isn't David. I'm Mark." But in that moment, the way she looked at me, like she had been waiting her entire life to see me, made my breath hitch. She clutched her chest, and I thought she might collapse right there in front of us. "Mom, what's going on?" Emily, the girl who dragged me into this crazy plan, rushed to her mother's side. Her voice cracked with panic. Her mother's knees buckled slightly, but she steadied herself on the dining chair. "Emily," she whispered, How is this possible? Where did you find him?" Emily looked at me, her face pale, her mouth slightly open. "Find who?" "Mom, this is Mark. My fiance." The older woman's tears spilled over, and she stepped closer, touching my face with shaking hands. No, this can't be. You're him. You're my David." Every muscle in my body went rigid. I had no idea who David was, but something about the way she said his name sent chills down my spine. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat locked. Emily's father stood in the corner, his jaw clenched, staring at me like he was seeing a ghost too. The silence in the room was suffocating, like the air itself had turned to glass. Finally, I managed to whisper, "Who's David?" Her mother's voice broke as she said, "He's my son. My firstborn. He disappeared 60 years ago. You look just like him." The room spun. My hands went cold. 60 years ago? How could I look like her son who vanished decades before I was even born? Emily grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Mark, this is insane. Say something." But I couldn't, because as she touched me, something stirred deep inside, a strange, unexplainable feeling. A flicker of a memory that didn't belong to me. And then her mother collapsed to the floor, clutching her chest, sobbing, "You came back to me." Emily screamed, "Mom!" while her father rushed to grab her. My knees nearly gave out as I reached for her, my heart thundering in my ears. In that moment, I knew this wasn't just a dinner. Something far bigger was happening, something I wasn't ready to face. Because when her mother looked up at me with those tearful eyes, I saw it. She wasn't just mistaking me for someone else. She believed with all her soul that I was her lost son. And the terrifying part? Somehow, I almost believed it too. I couldn't sleep that night. Emily had driven me back to my apartment in silence, her fingers gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned white. Neither of us spoke a word the entire ride. When she finally pulled up to my building, she didn't even look at me. "What the hell was that, Mark?" she whispered, her voice trembling. I rubbed my face, trying to make sense of everything. "I don't know, Emily. I swear I don't know." "She thought you were David," she said, her voice cracking on the name. "Do you realize how crazy that sounds? My mom hasn't spoken his name in decades. She never talks about him. Not once." I stared at her, my heart thudding. "Emily, who was he? Tell me everything." She leaned back in her seat, biting her lip like she was holding back tears. "David was my uncle. My mom's older brother. He went missing when he was just 20. No one ever found him. They said he ran away, others whispered he died somewhere far away. But my mom, she never believed any of it. She always said he'd come back. And now she thinks I'm him," I muttered, still shaking. Emily turned to me sharply. "Mark, this isn't funny. You're not him. You can't be." "I know," I said quickly. But the way she looked at me. Emily, it felt like she knew me. Like I knew her. She didn't say anything after that. She just drove off, leaving me standing under the flickering streetlight, my head spinning. The next morning, I woke up drenched in sweat. I had dreams or memories I couldn't explain. I saw myself standing in a field I'd never been to, holding someone's hand. I heard a woman's voice calling me, David. When I looked down at my hands, they were covered in dirt and blood. I shook it off, telling myself it was just my mind playing tricks on me. But when I got up and looked in the mirror, something inside me shifted. My own reflection felt unfamiliar. By the afternoon, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to see Emily. I drove to her house, and when she opened the door, she looked like she hadn't slept either. "Why are you here?" she asked softly, almost like she was scared of the answer. "I need to see her," I said. "Your mom. I need to ask her questions." Emily hesitated, her eyes darting toward the hallway where I could hear faint sounds of a TV. "She's not doing well, Mark. Ever since last night, she's been crying non-stop. My dad says you triggered something in her." "I didn't mean to," I said, guilt clawing at me. "But maybe if I talk to her." "No," Emily cut me off. "You don't get it. This isn't a game. My mom, she's fragile. And now she thinks her dead brother has come back to her? It's cruel." I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "Emily, I'm not trying to hurt her. But I think there's something I need to know." Before she could argue, her mother appeared at the top of the stairs. Her hair was messy, her eyes red and puffy, but when she saw me, she gasped. "David," she whispered, clutching the railing. My chest tightened. "I'm not David," I said softly. "Yes, you are," she cried. "You came back. After all these years, you came back to me." Her father stormed out from the living room, his face red with anger. "Get out," he barked at me. "You're upsetting her." "I'm not trying to." "Out," he shouted, his voice shaking the walls. Emily stepped between us. "Dad, stop. This isn't helping." But he wasn't listening. He grabbed my arm, shoving me toward the door. "Leave my family alone. I don't know who you are or what game you're playing, but stay away from us." I stumbled back, my heart pounding, as he slammed the door in my face. As I stood there on the porch, shaking, I heard her mother's voice through the door, soft, broken, and filled with pain. "David, don't leave me again." I walked away, but with every step, I felt that strange pull inside me growing stronger. Something was buried deep in my past, something I couldn't explain. And I knew one thing for sure. This wasn't over. Because that night when I closed my eyes, I saw him again, David, staring back at me through a cracked mirror, whispering words I couldn't understand. Then the mirror shattered. The following days were torture. I tried to live normally, go to work, eat, sleep, but everything felt wrong. Every time I passed a mirror, I half expected to see David staring back at me. The dreams grew worse. They were no longer just flashes of someone else's life. They were vivid, almost real. In one dream, I was standing at the edge of a lake under a blood-red sunset. A woman's voice was crying out for help. I ran into the water, but something pulled me under. I woke up gasping, my sheets soaked with sweat. By the third night, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. I called Emily, but she didn't pick up. So, I drove to her house in the middle of the night. Her father's truck wasn't there, but the porch light was on. When she opened the door, she looked startled. "Mark, it's 2 a.m, she hissed. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to your mom," I said firmly. "Are you crazy? My dad will kill you if he finds you here." "I don't care. Emily, I'm losing my mind. I'm having memories that aren't mine. I see places, faces, Things I can't explain. Something's happening to me, and your mom knows what it is. She stared at me, her expression softening with concern. Finally, she sighed and stepped aside. Fine. But if this goes bad, we both run. Inside, the house was dim and silent. Emily led me upstairs to her mother's room. She was sitting on the edge of her bed, staring out the window like she'd been waiting for me. When she saw me, her face lit up with tears. David, she breathed. You came back. I knelt in front of her, my voice trembling. Ma'am, I'm not David. My name is Mark. But something's happening to me. I need to know the truth. Please, tell me about him. Her eyes glistened as she reached out, touching my cheek. You were my firstborn. You were everything to me. And then you disappeared. That night by the lake. The lake, I whispered. My heart pounded. That was the place from my dreams. Yes, she sobbed. They said you drowned. But I knew you didn't. I felt it. I felt you were still out there, somewhere. Emily stepped closer, her voice shaky. Mom, stop. You're confusing him with… No, her mother snapped, her voice suddenly strong. You don't understand. He's here because something brought him back. The air in the room grew heavy, and I felt dizzy. My head throbbed as flashes of memories that weren't mine, overwhelmed me. I saw myself as a young man, standing at the lake. I saw shadows moving in the trees. Then I saw water, endless water, swallowing me whole. I staggered back, clutching my head. I remember. Emily grabbed my arm. Mark, what's happening to you? Before I could answer, the front door slammed open downstairs. Heavy footsteps thundered through the house. Her father's voice roared, What the hell is going on here? Emily's eyes widened. It's my dad. You need to leave now. But before I could move, he stormed into the room, his face red with fury. You again? I told you to stay away from my family. Dad, please, Emily cried. He didn't listen. He lunged at me, grabbing me by the collar. I don't know what you're trying to do, but you're not taking her down with you. Her mother screamed, Stop! He's my son. The words hung in the air, freezing all of us. Her father's grip loosened, but his face twisted with rage. He's not your son. David is dead. This man is an imposter. I stumbled back, my chest heaving. I'm not trying to hurt anyone, I said, my voice shaking. I just need to know who I am. Her father's eyes burned into mine. Then get out of my house before I make you regret it. Emily pulled me toward the hallway. Mark, go. Please. I'll call you later. I hesitated, looking back at her mother who was crying, reaching out for me. Don't leave me again, she whispered. I turned and ran down the stairs, the father's shouts echoing behind me. As I stepped outside into the cold night, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered, my breath ragged. A deep voice on the other end said, Mark, we need to talk about David. Meet me where it all started. By the lake. The call ended. My heart stopped. Who was that? How did they know about the lake? I looked back at the house one last time, then climbed into my car, because whatever was waiting for me at that lake might finally tell me the truth. The drive to the lake felt like a dream. Quiet roads stretching endlessly under the moonlight, the cold night air creeping through my cracked window. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tight they hurt. The voice on the phone had been calm, almost too calm, like it knew something I didn't. By the time I reached the old, weathered sign that read Lake Harrington, the sun was just beginning to rise, painting the water in soft shades of gold and blue. The lake looked peaceful, but my stomach twisted. This was the place for my dreams, the place where David had vanished. I parked near the edge, stepping out slowly. The air smelled of damp earth and pine. The lake's surface was smooth as glass, reflecting the sky above. Mark! I spun around. A man stood by the trees, half hidden in the morning fog. He was older, maybe in his 60s, with a rugged face and eyes sharp as knives. He wore a worn leather jacket and a cap pulled low. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice shaky. He stepped closer, his boots crunching on the gravel. "Name's Jack. I knew David. I was there the night he disappeared." My chest tightened. "You were there?" Jack nodded slowly. "You look just like him. It's unsettling." I swallowed hard. "What happened that night?" Jack's eyes darkened. "There was an argument. David had gotten himself tangled in something dangerous, things your girlfriend's parents never wanted the world to know. He was supposed to meet me here. Instead, there were others waiting for him, men who wanted him gone." The hairs on my arms stood up. "Are you saying he was murdered?" Jack looked at the water, his jaw tightening. "I don't know. There was a fight. Screaming. Then he went into the lake. I searched, but he was gone. The police said he drowned, but I never believed it. Someone made sure his body was never found." I felt dizzy, the ground swaying beneath me. "Why are you telling me this now?" Jack's gaze burned into mine. "Because you being here means something. Maybe you're not David, but something of him is in you. I can feel it. And if you're here, it means the truth is clawing its way back." Before I could respond, a car engine roared in the distance. Jack stiffened. "They found us," he hissed. "What? Who?" I asked, my voice rising in panic. He grabbed my arm, pulling me toward the trees. "Run! Now!" We darted into the forest just as headlights cut through the fog. A black SUV screeched to a stop near my car. Two men in dark suits stepped out, scanning the area like predators. Jack and I crouched low behind the trees, holding our breath. The men walked to the edge of the lake, speaking in low voices. I couldn't hear what they said, but their presence sent chills down my spine. Jack whispered, "They're the same kind of men from back then. They don't want the truth out." I looked at him, my heart pounding. "What truth?" Before he could answer, one of the men turned suddenly, staring straight into the woods where we were hiding. Jack cursed under his breath. "Go! Run!" We bolted deeper into the trees, branches whipping against my face. Behind us, I heard the men shouting, footsteps crashing through the underbrush. My lungs burned, but I kept running. After what felt like forever, we burst out onto an old dirt road. Jack stopped, gasping for air. "They won't follow us here." I collapsed to my knees, trembling. "What is happening? Why are they after us?" Jack knelt beside me, his expression grim. "Because David knew something. Something big. And if they think you're connected to him, they'll do whatever it takes to stop you." My mind spun. "I need to tell Emily." Jack grabbed my shoulder. "No. Don't go back to her house. They'll be watching. Meet me tonight at the old boathouse on the north side of the lake. I'll tell you everything." Before I could ask more, he disappeared into the trees, leaving me alone on the dirt road. I stumbled back to my car, my heart still racing. As I drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror and froze. A black SUV was following me. I hit the gas, my hands shaking. Whoever they weren't going to let me go easily. When I finally reached my apartment, I locked every door and window, my body trembling with adrenaline. I pulled out my phone to call Emily, only to find a text from an unknown number. "Stop digging into the past, or you'll end up just like David." My blood ran cold. I looked around my dark apartment, every shadow suddenly feeling alive. And then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video. My hands shook as I pressed play. The footage showed me, standing at the edge of the lake earlier that morning, filmed from the trees. The message beneath it read, "We're watching you." I didn't sleep a single second that day. Every creak in my apartment, every car passing outside, felt like someone watching me. Whoever sent that message knew where I was, and they wanted me to know it too. When the sky finally turned orange with the evening sun, I grabbed my jacket, stuffed a flashlight in my pocket, and slipped out through the back stairwell, avoiding the main entrance. I kept glancing over my shoulder the whole way to my car. No black SUV in sight, yet. The drive to the north side of the lake felt endless. The road was rough, lined with tall, shadowy pines. By the time I reached the abandoned boathouse, the sun had vanished completely, leaving only the pale glow of the moon. The structure looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, wood rotting, windows shattered, the smell of damp moss clinging to the air. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness as I stepped inside, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Jack!" I called softly. No answer. Just the sound of water gently lapping against the old wooden dock. I took another cautious step, the floorboards creaking under my weight. "Jack, it's me, Mark." Suddenly, a hand grabbed me from behind. I spun around, ready to fight, but it was Jack. His face was tense, his eyes scanning the shadows. "You came," he said in a low voice. "Good. That means you're ready to hear everything." I swallowed hard. "Tell me, what's going on?" Jack motioned for me to sit on an overturned crate. He crouched beside me, speaking quickly, like time was running out. Back in 1963, David uncovered something he wasn't supposed to. He worked at a research facility upstate, a place that didn't officially exist. They were experimenting with genetic memory, ways to transfer consciousness. He found out they were using illegal human trials. People vanished. Mark. People like him. My heart thudded. "You're saying he was part of some experiment?" Jack nodded. "Not willingly. When he tried to expose them, they came for him. That night at the lake, they didn't just kill him. They used him. His body vanished because they took it." I felt sick. "But what does that have to do with me?" Jack leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "You think it's a coincidence you look just like him? You think it's random you're having his memories? Mark, you're connected to him. Maybe they put part of him in you. Maybe you're the result of what they were testing all those years ago." My skin crawled. "That's impossible." Jack's expression hardened. "You felt it, didn't you? The memories, the dreams? That's not imagination. That's him, inside you. And they know it. That's why they're hunting you." I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, a loud crack echoed outside. Jack froze, his eyes darting to the doorway. "They're here," he hissed. We barely had time to react. The boathouse door burst open, and two men in black suits stormed in, flashlights blinding us. Jack grabbed my arm. "Run!" We bolted toward the back, crashing through a broken window and landing hard on the wet ground outside. Bullets tore through the night air, splintering the wooden walls as we sprinted toward the forest. "Keep running!" Jack shouted, shoving me ahead. "Don't stop!" My legs burned, my lungs screamed for air, but I kept going. Behind us, I heard the men shouting, the crunch of their boots getting closer. Jack suddenly shoved me to the ground, throwing himself behind a fallen log. "Stay down!" I ducked, my heart in my throat, as the men's flashlights swept over the trees. Jack pulled out a small pistol from his jacket and fired 2 shots, forcing them to take cover. "This way!" he yelled, dragging me toward a narrow path that led deeper into the woods. We ran until the voices faded and the only sound was our own ragged breathing. We collapsed under a thick canopy of trees, the darkness wrapping around us like a cloak. Jack leaned against a tree, clutching his side. I noticed his hand was wet with blood. "You're hurt," I said, panicked. He waved me off. "Doesn't matter. Listen to me, Mark. They'll keep coming. They won't stop until they erase every trace of David, and that means you too." I grabbed his arm. "There has to be a way to stop them." Jack's eyes locked on mine, burning with urgency. "There is. David left something behind, a recording, proof of what they did. It's hidden, but only you can find it. It's in the place where it all started. The facility. You need to get there before they do." "Where is it?" I demanded. He coughed, blood on his lips. "Blackridge. The old facility in the mountains. Find it, Mark. End this." Before I could ask more, a distant howl of dogs cut through the night. The men were still searching. Jack shoved me toward the path. "Go. I'll hold them off." "I'm not leaving you," I protested. "You have to," he shouted, his voice fierce. "Go before it's too late." Tears stung my eyes as I stumbled backward, watching him raise his pistol with trembling hands. I turned and ran, branches clawing at my face, the forest spinning around me. Behind me, a single gunshot rang out. Then silence. I kept running, my chest burning, my mind screaming. When I finally burst out onto a deserted road, I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. Jack was gone. And now it was up to me to uncover the truth. As I stood, trembling, headlights suddenly flared behind me. A car screeched to a stop, and a figure stepped out. It was Emily. Her face was pale, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. "Mark, get in. Now." I hesitated for only a second before climbing in. As we sped off into the night, Emily gripped the wheel tightly. "I know everything," she said, her voice cold and trembling. I stared at her in shock. "What do you mean?" She turned to me, her eyes filled with something I'd never seen before. Fear. "My father, he's been working with them this whole time." The words hung in the air like a knife. My heart lurched. "What?" I whispered, gripping the edge of the seat. Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel, her knuckles white. "My dad, he's been part of it for years. The facility, the experiments, everything. He was one of the scientists who worked with them back then. That's why he hates hearing David's name. That's why he wanted you gone." I couldn't breathe. "Emily, are you saying your father was involved in what happened to David?" She nodded, her eyes glistening in the glow of the dashboard lights. "When I was little, I found old documents in his study, papers with names, codes, maps. He caught me looking and told me to never ever speak about it. I thought it was just government stuff he wasn't allowed to share, until tonight." I stared at her. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" Her voice cracked. "Because I didn't want to believe it. But when you came into our lives, when Mom called you David, everything clicked. You're part of something bigger, Mark. And my father will do anything to bury it." I turned to the window, the trees whipping past in a blur. Jack's last words echoed in my head. "Find the facility. End this." "Emily," I said, my voice low, "we have to go to Blackridge." She slammed the brakes, the car screeching to a stop on the deserted highway. "Are you insane? That place is off the grid. Even the roads to it have been erased. You go there, you'll die." I looked at her, my jaw set. "If I don't go, they'll keep coming. They'll kill me, your mom, maybe even you. I can't let that happen." Emily's breath trembled. For a long moment, she just stared at me. Then she whispered, "You're just like him." I frowned. "Like who?" David, she said, tears forming in her eyes. You're stubborn, brave, reckless. He would have done the same thing. The silence between us was heavy. Finally, she took a deep breath and slammed her foot on the gas. Fine. If we're doing this, we're doing it together. We drove through the night, following back roads Emily remembered from her childhood. Her father had taken her to the mountains once when she was small, and she swore she could retrace the route. The road narrowed, twisting through dense forest. The air grew colder, sharper, as fog rolled in. At dawn, we reached a rusted gate tangled with vines. A faded sign hung crookedly, restricted area, and no trespassing. This is it, Emily said, her voice trembling. We slipped through a gap in the fence, our breaths visible in the cold morning air. Beyond the gate, an old dirt road led up to a cluster of buildings barely visible through the mist. The facility. It looked abandoned, windows shattered, walls covered in graffiti, the roof caved in places. But the closer we got, the more I felt that prickling on the back of my neck. We weren't alone. We crept through the front entrance, stepping over broken glass. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and rust. Long, dark hallways stretched ahead, lined with rooms full of toppled furniture and dust-covered equipment. This place gives me the creeps, Emily whispered. I shone my flashlight on a wall. Scrawled in faded red paint were the words, "Leave while you can." We pressed on, deeper into the facility. Then I heard it. Footsteps. I froze, holding my breath. The sound echoed from somewhere ahead. Emily grabbed my arm. Mark, we need to hide. We ducked into a nearby room, crouching behind a fallen cabinet. Through a crack, I saw two men in black suits sweep the hallway with flashlights. One of them spoke into a radio. They're here. Secure the exits. Emily's eyes widened. They knew we were coming. The men moved on, and we slipped out, moving in the opposite direction. We climbed a set of stairs to the upper floor, the metal groaning under our weight. At the end of the hallway, a heavy door stood half open. Inside was a lab, untouched by time. Old machines hummed faintly, like they'd been running all these years without anyone noticing. On a dusty table, there was a small metal box with a strange symbol burned into the lid. My pulse quickened as I reached for it. The moment my fingers touched the box, a wave of memories crashed over me. I saw myself, or David, strapped to a table in this very room. Blinding lights above. Voices shouting orders. Pain tearing through my body as something burned into my skin. I staggered back, gasping. Emily caught me. Mark! What happened? Before I could answer, a voice echoed from the doorway. Well, well. Just like I expected. We turned slowly. Emily's father stood there, his face cold, a gun in his hand. Dad, Emily whispered, her voice breaking. What are you doing? He stepped inside, aiming the gun straight at me. You should have stayed away, Mark. You were never supposed to find this place. My heart pounded. You killed David, didn't you? His eyes flickered with something. Anger? Guilt? David was a mistake. Just like you. Emily stepped in front of me. Dad, stop. Please. He didn't lower the gun. You don't understand, Emily. He's not who you think he is. He's not even human. My stomach dropped. What are you talking about? You're a copy, he snarled. A vessel. They used David's DNA to create you. You were never meant to have a life. You were an experiment that slipped through the cracks. My mind spun, my knees nearly buckling. Emily screamed, You're lying. But his eyes burned with conviction. No. And now, I have to finish what should have been done a long time ago. He pulled the trigger. The shot rang out, deafening. But I wasn't the one who fell. Emily's mother had appeared in the doorway, and she collapsed to the floor, blood blossoming on her chest. "Mom!" Emily screamed, rushing to her. I dropped to my knees beside her, my hands trembling as I pressed against the wound. Her mother's eyes locked on mine, weak but fierce. She whispered, "David, don't let him win, finish this." Then her hand slipped from mine. Emily's scream shattered the air as her father stepped back, his face pale, his gun shaking. I stood slowly, rage boiling in my chest. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," I said, my voice low and trembling with fury. For the first time, he looked afraid. I lunged at him, my fists fueled by something more than anger, something primal. The gun clattered to the floor as we crashed into a table, scattering old papers and glass across the lab. He fought back hard, but adrenaline coursed through my veins. I wasn't going to let him escape this time. Emily screamed, "Mark, stop!" But her voice was drowned by the chaos. We slammed into the wall, and he elbowed me in the ribs, knocking the wind out of me. "You're not real," he snarled, spittle flying from his mouth. "You're just a shadow of David. You don't deserve to exist." I grabbed him by the collar, forcing him to face me. "Maybe I'm not David. Maybe I'm not who you think I am. But I am real, and I'm not letting you destroy anyone else." His eyes widened, fear creeping in as he realized he was losing. With a desperate shove, he broke free, snatching the gun from the floor. "Mark, move!" Emily shouted. He fired. The bullet grazed my arm, searing pain tearing through me. I dove behind a metal cabinet, my breath ragged. Emily grabbed a broken pipe from the floor, swinging it at her father. The blow knocked the gun from his hands, sending it skittering across the room. I crawled for the weapon, blood dripping from my arm, while Emily wrestled with her father. He overpowered her, slamming her against the wall. "You were supposed to be my daughter," he growled, "not his protector." That's when I fired. The shot echoed like thunder. His body jerked, eyes wide, before he collapsed to the floor. Emily slid down beside him, trembling. The room went silent except for our ragged breathing. Emily stared at her father's lifeless body, tears streaming down her face. He was my dad," she whispered, her voice breaking. I knelt beside her, my own hands shaking. "I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't have a choice." She wiped her eyes, her expression shifting from grief to determination. "He was a monster. He killed Mom, and God knows how many others. You did what had to be done." We sat there for a moment, the weight of everything crushing us. Then I noticed the metal box still on the table, untouched amidst the chaos. I picked it up, my fingers trembling as I flipped it open. Inside was an old cassette tape and a folded piece of paper. Emily leaned over my shoulder. "What is it?" I unfolded the paper. It was a map of the facility with a location marked in red, Vault B-13. Scrawled beneath it in David's handwriting were the words, "Proof. Set it free." I shoved the tape and map into my pocket. "We're not done yet. David left this for a reason. We need to find that vault." Emily nodded, her jaw set. "Then let's finish what he started." We moved quickly, following the map through twisting hallways deeper into the facility. Every corner felt like a trap, every sound like footsteps behind us. At one point, we passed a wall lined with dusty photographs of the scientists who had worked there decades ago. My heart stopped when I saw one of the faces. David. It was him, young, bright-eyed, smiling in a lab coat. I touched the glass, my chest tightening. That's who I was meant to be. Emily tugged my arm. "Mark, we have to keep moving." Finally, we reached a heavy steel door with B-13 stenciled on it. The lock was rusted, but with enough force and a metal rod, we pried it open. Inside was a small room, almost like a tomb. In the center stood an old safe, its door slightly ajar. I opened it, revealing stacks of files, reels of film, and more tapes, all labeled with project numbers. Emily's eyes widened. This is it. This is what they were hiding. I grabbed everything I could carry. As I did, the ground beneath us vibrated. The lights flickered. Emily looked around, panicked. Mark, what was that? A loud alarm blared through the building, the red emergency lights flashing. They know we're here, I said. The ceiling cracked above us as dust rained down. Somewhere in the distance, a voice shouted through an intercom, "Containment breach. Initiate lockdown." Emily clutched my hand. "We have to get out. Now." We ran, the hallways shaking around us, debris falling as the old facility began to collapse. Every step felt like it could be our last. As we turned a corner, we came face to face with two more men in suits, blocking our path. One of them smirked. "You're not leaving with that evidence." Before I could react, Emily grabbed a fire extinguisher from the wall and sprayed them in the face. They screamed, blinded, as I charged forward, knocking them aside. We sprinted to the exit just as a section of the ceiling caved in behind us. The door was only a few feet away when an explosion ripped through the building, throwing us to the ground. I dragged Emily outside, coughing, as the facility erupted into flames behind us. We collapsed on the dirt, staring at the inferno consuming the building. Emily clutched the tapes to her chest. "We got it. We actually got it." I looked at her, my voice trembling. "It's not over. They'll keep coming. But now we have the proof." She nodded, her face streaked with ash and tears. "Then we make sure the world sees it." As the flames roared, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I didn't feel like a shadow. I felt alive. But as I stood, a cold wind brushed against my neck, and a voice whispered in my mind, David's voice. "It's not over, Mark. They're coming." I froze, glancing into the trees where the darkness seemed to move. And there, watching us from the shadows, was a man I'd never seen before, his eyes glowing faintly in the night. Emily grabbed my arm. "Mark, who is that?" The man smiled, and then he vanished into the darkness. The fight wasn't over. It was only beginning. We barely made it to the car. My arm throbbed where the bullet had grazed me, and Emily's face was streaked with grime and blood, but she held the tapes tightly against her chest like they were the last thing keeping her alive. The burning facility lit up the night behind us, flames devouring the building until it collapsed in on itself. Emily gripped the steering wheel as she started the car, her hands trembling. "Who was that man, Mark?" "The one in the trees." I shook my head, staring out the rear window, trying to calm my pounding heart. "I don't know. But he wasn't with your father's men. He felt different." "Different how?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Like he was waiting for me," I said, my voice low. We drove in silence, the night eerily quiet. Not even crickets chirped. After a few miles, Emily pulled off the road into an empty gas station parking lot. She cut the engine, and we sat there in the dark, the only light coming from the distant glow of the fire. "We can't go home," she said, staring straight ahead. "They'll be looking for us." "I know," I replied. "But we need to get this evidence somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't reach it." Emily turned to me, her eyes fierce. "Then we go public. We give it to the press, to anyone who will listen." I hesitated. "You think they'll believe us? They'll call us crazy." "Maybe," she said, her voice trembling. "But they can't ignore proof. And we have it." I nodded slowly. She was right. As dawn broke, we drove into the next town and checked into a small roadside motel. The place smelled like old cigarettes, but it was the safest option we had. Emily set the tapes and files on the bed, and we started going through them. Most of the papers were reports filled with scientific jargon, but one stood out, a journal with David's handwriting. I opened it carefully, flipping through the pages. His words were frantic, messy, written like he was running out of time. "They're using me. They're splitting pieces of me. Copies. They said it was for progress, but I know it's about control. If anyone finds this, burn it all down. Don't let them win." My hands trembled as I read. Emily looked over my shoulder, her breath catching. "Mark, you're one of those copies." I closed the journal, my chest heavy. "Maybe. But I'm not him. I'm me. And I'm going to finish what he started." That night, as Emily slept curled up on the other bed, I sat awake staring at the tapes. Something inside me urged me to play one. I slipped one into the old motel TV's built-in VCR, and the screen flickered to life. The video was grainy, but I could make out David strapped to a table, just like in my visions. His face was bruised, his eyes full of defiance. A voice off camera said, "Final test begins now." David stared straight into the camera. "If anyone sees this, know that I fought. They can kill me, but they'll never kill the truth. Mark, if you exist, finish this. Don't let them make more of us." The screen went black. I sat frozen, the weight of his words pressing down on me. He knew about me. Somehow, he had left that message for me. Then I heard it, a soft creak outside the motel door. I grabbed the gun we had taken from Emily's father and moved slowly toward the window. Through the blinds, I saw a shadow move past the door. I turned to wake Emily, but before I could, the door exploded inward, splinters flying. Figures in black stormed in, guns raised. "Get down!" I shouted, shoving Emily to the floor. Bullets ripped through the room as I fired back blindly. The men were relentless, moving like trained predators. Emily crawled to the tapes, clutching them to her chest as I covered her. I took one down with a lucky shot, but the others kept coming. Suddenly, the window shattered, and the man from the forest leapt through, moving like a shadow. He took down two of the attackers in seconds, his movements inhumanly fast. The remaining men turned their guns on him, but he vanished into the darkness, reappearing behind them and snapping their necks with terrifying ease. When the room fell silent, I stood there shaking, gun still raised. Emily clung to me, sobbing. The man stepped forward, his glowing eyes fixed on me. "You're stronger than they told me," he said in a deep, calm voice. "Who are you?" I demanded. He smiled faintly. "You already know. I'm what you'll become if you survive." "What do you mean, survive?" I asked, my voice trembling. "They won't stop until you're either dead or theirs," he said. "But you have something they fear. The truth. Take it to the mountains. There's a place where their power ends. Go there, and you'll understand everything." Emily gripped my arm. "Why should we trust you?" The man's expression darkened. "Because if you don't, you'll end up like the rest of them." Before we could ask more, he stepped back toward the shattered window. "Time is short. They're sending more. Be ready." Then he disappeared into the night, leaving us in the wrecked motel room surrounded by bodies. Emily turned to me, trembling. "Mark, what do we do now?" I picked up the tapes and the journal, my jaw tight. "We run. And we fight." But as we stepped out into the cold night air, the distant sound of sirens and helicopters filled the sky. I looked at Emily, my heart pounding. "They're coming for us." And this time, there would be no place to hide. We ran into the night with only the clothes on our backs, the tapes stuffed into my jacket. The sirens grew louder behind us, mingled with the hum of helicopter blades slicing the air. The motel was already swarming with black SUVs when we slipped into the dense forest across the road. Every step was a gamble, branches snapping underfoot, the beam of searchlights sweeping the trees. Emily's breath came in sharp gasps. Mark, they're everywhere. We'll never make it. I gripped her hand tighter, forcing myself to stay calm. We will. We have to. We moved deeper into the woods until the searchlights faded and the sirens became distant. Finally, we collapsed under the cover of thick pines, our chests heaving. Emily clutched the tapes like her life depended on them. Where do we go now? We can't keep running forever. I pulled out David's journal, flipping to the last page. There, scrawled in shaky handwriting, were coordinates and one word: sanctuary. I showed Emily. This is where we're going. It's the place the man from the forest mentioned, the mountains. She stared at the page, her eyes wide with fear. You think this is where all of this ends? I nodded. It has to be. We traveled on foot until dawn, avoiding roads and sticking to the shadows. By the time the sun rose, our clothes were soaked with dew, and our legs ached, but we didn't stop. Eventually, we stumbled upon a deserted train track and followed it to a small rural town. We found an old pickup truck sitting unattended behind a gas station. Emily hot-wired it, a skill I never knew she had. She gave me a quick, nervous glance. My dad taught me. Guess he never thought I'd use it against him. The truck roared to life, and we hit the road, heading toward the mountains. Every few miles, we spotted black SUVs on parallel roads, moving like wolves on the hunt. They're tracking us, Emily muttered, gripping the wheel. They'll never stop, I said. Not until they have me, or kill me. Hours later, as the sun dipped behind the peaks, we reached the coordinates. The road ended at a hidden trail winding up into the mountains. We abandoned the truck and started the climb, our legs burning with every step. Halfway up, fog rolled in, thick and suffocating. The world felt eerily silent, like the mountain itself was holding its breath. Then we heard it, footsteps behind us. We turned, guns raised, as the shadowed figure from before emerged from the mist. His glowing eyes pierced the fog. You made it, he said, his voice low. Emily aimed her gun at him. Who are you? What do you want from us? He raised his hands slowly. I'm not your enemy. I told you before. I'm what you'll become, Mark. I stepped closer, my voice trembling. Are you saying you're me? A faint smile crossed his face. Not exactly. I'm another version of David. They tried to copy him many times before they created you. I'm one of the failures they couldn't control. I escaped and learned to survive. My stomach twisted. If you're like me, then you know how this ends. He nodded. Yes, and that's why you need to listen. The tapes you carry, they're the key to destroying them. But to use them, you have to go through the gateway in the sanctuary. Once you cross it, there's no coming back. Emily's grip tightened on my arm. What does that mean? The man's expression darkened. It means you'll have to sacrifice something, maybe everything. But if you succeed, their control ends. Forever. Before we could respond, a deafening roar split the air. A helicopter burst through the fog, its searchlight blinding us. Black SUVs screeched to a stop at the base of the mountain, men in suits pouring out, guns raised. They found us, Emily shouted. The other David drew two blades from his back, his eyes glowing brighter. Go. I'll hold them off. No. I yelled. You'll die. He smirked. I've already died once. Now go. Gunfire erupted as he charged into the chaos, moving like a shadow, cutting down the attackers with inhuman speed. Emily and I ran up the final stretch of the trail, bullets zipping past us, rocks exploding under the impact. The mountain opened up into a cavern bathed in an eerie blue glow. At its center stood an ancient-looking archway pulsing with light, the gateway. Emily grabbed my arm. Mark, are you sure about this? I stared at the archway, feeling the hum of its energy deep in my bones. I have to do this. For David. For all of us. We stepped closer, but a voice behind us made us freeze. Well, well. You made it this far. We turned to see a man in a sleek black suit step out of the fog, flanked by armed soldiers. His face was cold, his smile cruel. I've been waiting to meet the perfect copy, he said. Too bad you won't live to use that gateway. He raised his gun, aiming straight at my head. Emily screamed, "Mark!" And before I could move, the world exploded into chaos. The first shot cracked through the air, but it wasn't aimed at me. The glowing-eyed David, bleeding, limping, emerged from the fog like a ghost, knocking the gunman's arm aside. The bullet ricocheted into the rocks, and chaos erupted. The soldiers opened fire. The cavern filled with gunfire, dust, and the deafening roar of helicopter blades circling above. Emily and I dove behind a jagged boulder as bullets tore into the stone around us. The man in the black suit, clearly the leader, smiled calmly amidst the chaos, like he knew the outcome was already his. You think you can destroy decades of work with a few tapes and a broken experiment? You have no idea what you're up against. I stood, clutching the tapes against my chest. You're afraid of the truth. That's why you're here. That's why you keep killing anyone who gets close. His smile faded. You don't understand, Mark. You were never meant to survive. You were meant to replace. My stomach twisted. Replace who? David, he said, almost with a hint of pride. And everyone like him. The perfect vessel. You're the final product. If we can't control you, we'll destroy you. Before I could respond, the glowing-eyed David lunged at him, blades flashing. The leader sidestepped effortlessly, pulling a concealed blade of his own. The two of them clashed in a blur of steel, moving faster than humanly possible. Emily pulled me back. Mark, the gateway. You have to get to it. I looked at the archway, its pulsating blue light growing brighter, almost calling to me. My heart pounded. David's journal said this was the key. We sprinted toward it, dodging falling rocks as explosions erupted behind us. Soldiers tried to block our path, but I fought with everything I had. Punches, kicks, grabbing one of their dropped rifles and firing wildly. Emily covered me, throwing debris and using anything she could to slow them down. The archway's hum grew louder as we neared. It wasn't just light anymore. It was pulling me, like it recognized me. The leader shoved the glowing-eyed David to the ground, stabbing him in the side. Then he turned toward me, fury twisting his features. You will not go through that gate. He charged, but the other David, bleeding, barely standing, grabbed his leg, yanking him back with a final burst of strength. Go, Mark! He shouted, his voice echoing through the cavern. Finish it! Emily screamed. Now, Mark! Go! I sprinted the last few feet, clutching the tapes and journal. The gateway's energy wrapped around me, lifting my feet off the ground. I felt David's memories surge into me, his pain, his strength, his hope. The leader broke free and ran toward me, screaming. Emily threw herself at him, knocking him back. They struggled as the light around me grew blinding. The glowing-eyed David looked up at me one last time, his voice barely a whisper. End them. With one final breath, I stepped through the archway. The world dissolved into blinding light. My body felt like it was being ripped apart and rebuilt all at once. Memories flooded me, not just David's, but hundreds of lives, hundreds of voices. I was no longer just me. I was all of them. When the light faded, I stood in a vast white chamber. In front of me was a console glowing with the same blue energy. I instinctively placed the tapes and journal on it. The machine came to life, projecting David's recordings, the files, everything. A voice, soft, mechanical, spoke from the air. Data accepted. Releasing information globally. Screens appeared all around me, showing news broadcasts, governments, scientists, all receiving the truth about the experiments. The world would know everything. I collapsed to my knees as the chamber began to shake. The gateway was collapsing. Back in the cavern, Emily's screams echoed faintly. I wanted to run back to her, but the voice whispered, "Sacrifice required." I understood. The gateway needed me to stay to complete the transfer. Tears burned my eyes. "Emily, I'm sorry." As the light consumed me, I heard her voice calling my name one last time. When the explosion cleared, the mountain was silent. The facility's forces were gone. The leader's body lay broken among the rubble, and the glowing-eyed David had vanished like mist. Emily stumbled to the edge of the ruins, crying out my name. But there was no answer, only the soft, eerie hum of the now-dead gateway. She fell to her knees, clutching David's journal, tears streaming down her face. Days later, headlines across the world exposed the horrific experiments of the Blackridge facility. The tapes and files had been leaked to every media outlet, igniting investigations and arrests. The truth had spread, just as David, and now I, had wanted. Emily sat alone on a quiet hill overlooking the mountains, the journal in her lap. She whispered to the wind, "You did it, Mark. You saved us." A breeze rustled the trees, and for a moment, she thought she heard my voice. "I'm still here." She closed her eyes, smiling through her tears, because she knew somehow I was